It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of Tuesday nobody remembers until something goes wrong, and it started so small you could almost miss it. A quiet street, trimmed lawns, kids just getting home, a woman pulling into her own driveway thinking about dinner and whether she had the energy to cook or if leftovers were winning tonight. 3 minutes later, she was handcuffed, barefoot, shoved into the back of a police car, in front of her neighbors, hearing a man with a badge say, "I don't care who you are." Yeah, that happened. And once you hear how it unfolded, you don't forget it. Her name is Vanessa Porter, and before that day, she was the kind of person people describe with words like composed, disciplined, respected, a judge. Not TV judge respected, not social media respected, but the quiet kind of respected that comes from decades of work nobody claps for. She spent most of her adult life in courtrooms listening more than she talked, weighing words carefully because she knew words could change lives. She believed in the system, you know what I mean, not blindly, not naively, but enough to dedicate her life to it. And that's what makes this story hit so hard, because it's not about someone who didn't know the rules. It's about someone who lived by them. That afternoon, she drove home like she always did. Same route, same street, same driveway she'd pulled into for years. No rushing, no drama, no reason to think today would be different from any other day. She eased the car in, put it in park, reached for her bag, and then she saw the cruiser in her mirror. No lights, no siren, just a slow roll and a stop that blocked her in, the kind of stop that already feels like a decision has been made for you. The officer stepped out, hand resting near his belt, sunglasses on posture stiff. He didn't ask a question. He didn't say hello. He leaned in and barked, "Turn the engine off. Now." Vanessa paused for half a second, not because she was resisting, but because she was trying to understand how she'd gone from homeowner to suspect without a single word exchanged. She said calmly, "Officer, this is my home. I'm in my driveway." He ignored that completely and pointed at the door. "Step out of the vehicle." She repeated herself, still polite, still controlled, because she knew escalation is dangerous. "I live here. I haven't done anything." And that's when he said it, loud, sharp, already building a story for later. Stop resisting. She hadn't resisted anything. She hadn't even moved yet. From there, everything accelerated like it was sliding downhill. He opened the door himself, grabbed her arm, twisted it behind her back, pushed her against the hood hard enough that her bag hit the ground and made that awful sound that turns heads. Neighbors froze. Curtains shifted. Phones came out. Vanessa winced but didn't scream. She didn't fight. She didn't beg. She did what she's done her whole life in tense situations. She spoke clearly. "I am Judge Vanessa Porter. This is my home." And the officer said the line that would follow him everywhere after that day, the line that made people sit up straight when they heard it, "I don't care who you are." In that moment, it didn't matter that she was a judge, a homeowner, a taxpayer, a woman who had dedicated her life to upholding the law. None of it mattered, because he had already decided who she was in his head, and facts were just noise. She was cuffed right there in her own driveway barefoot because she'd kicked her heels off in the car like anyone does after a long day. Guided toward the cruiser while neighbors recorded, not intervening, not yelling, just watching with that stunned look people get when something doesn't match the picture they have of their world. Vanessa stayed calm even then. She said things like, "There are cameras not as a threat, but as a warning." He shoved her into the back seat anyway, closed the door, and that sound, that solid slam, was the sound that traveled faster than anything else. Because people don't just hear a door close, they hear what it represents. Now here's the part that makes people uncomfortable, because this didn't come out of nowhere. The officer, Matthew Clean, had been on the force for years, long enough to build a reputation, long enough to rack up complaints that somehow never stuck. Excessive force complaints, racial profiling complaints, the kind of complaints that always seem to get handled internally, which is a polite way of saying buried. On paper, he was proactive, detail-oriented, officer safety-focused. Off the record, people said he pushed too hard, made small things big, turned routine encounters into confrontations. And still nothing happened. Because he wrote clean reports. Because his numbers looked good. Because someone always decided it wasn't the right time to deal with him. You ignore a problem long enough, it doesn't disappear. It just waits. At the station, reality finally caught up. A sergeant looked up and recognized Vanessa immediately. You could see the shift, the sudden understanding that this wasn't just another arrest. Vanessa said calmly, "I was arrested in my driveway without cause." Clean launched into his version because there's always a version. Non-compliant subject, suspicious vehicle, refused to exit. Then he added, "She claimed she was a judge." Claimed, like it was a trick, like people just say that for fun. The lieutenant came out, took one look at Vanessa, and ordered the cuffs off immediately. Apologies followed, quiet and uncomfortable. Clean didn't apologize. He stood there, arms crossed, jaw tight, watching the authority drain out of the room. By the time Vanessa left the station, the footage was already moving. Neighbor videos, ring camera angles, dash cam audio. It was clear, painfully clear. A woman on her own property, calm, identifying herself, being treated like a threat for no reason that could stand up to daylight. Civil rights groups responded before sunrise. News outlets picked it up. Social media did what it always does when something hits a nerve. It exploded. And the city issued statements that sounded serious but said nothing. "We're reviewing the incident. We take this seriously." People weren't buying it because they'd seen it with their own eyes. As the attention grew, so did the scrutiny. Reporters dug into Clean's history. Those old complaints resurfaced along with internal memos that suddenly looked a lot less harmless. Risk management warnings that said he escalated unnecessarily, especially with black residents. Emails asking if someone should be watching him more closely. No responses. No action. All the signs were there and they'd been ignored. Vanessa didn't rush to file anything. She waited. Let the facts stack up. Let the city feel the pressure. Then with her legal team, she filed a federal civil rights lawsuit that didn't rely on emotion or outrage. It relied on evidence, timestamps, video, history, pattern. The argument was simple and devastating. This wasn't a mistake. It was a system working exactly as designed until it hit the wrong person. Depositions cracked things open even more. Supervisors admitted they'd seen the warnings. Someone admitted they didn't act because of union pressure. Another admitted Clean was known for pushing boundaries but bringing in stats. "We had to pick our battles," one of them said. That sentence followed the case like a ghost. Because every time someone says that, what they're really saying is, we chose convenience over accountability. And accountability always comes due. 8 months later, the city settled. $820,000, one of the largest settlements of its kind in the state. The language mattered as much as the check. An acknowledgement of constitutional violations, an acknowledgement that Vanessa was detained and cuffed without legal basis, a public apology from the police chief. Clean was fired. His certification flagged so he couldn't quietly move to another department and start over. On paper, it looked like justice, and in some ways it was. But Vanessa never framed it as a victory. At the press conference, standing on courthouse steps, she knew better than anyone she didn't raise her voice. She didn't grandstand. She said, "I did everything right. I stayed calm. I identified myself. I was on my own property. And none of it mattered." Then she asked the question that still hangs in the air. If this can happen to me, what happens to someone without a title, without credentials, without cameras? The city announced reforms because that's what cities do after something like this. New rules about verifying identity before using force. Automatic audits for officers with multiple complaints. Public data dashboards. Civilian oversight boards, and those things matter. They really do. But Vanessa said something later that stuck with me, something simple and painfully true. You can't legislate your way out of bias. Because policies don't change instincts. They don't change the split-second assumptions people make when they see someone who doesn't fit their idea of belonging. That's why this story doesn't end clean.